Okay, so in this video we are going to learn how to render an historical map with topography or with elevation terrain underneath it. Okay, so this is going to be a US based example, and I'm working with JD on Fenway Park. And what we were thinking, he has a real passion for this city. And so what I'm thinking could be his first AOI would be just the city limits of Boston. Okay, and so let's go to the portal and let's go to the Living Atlas and let's search for USA urban boundaries. Okay, and let's see what we have here. Housing in urban regions. No, that's not gonna, US Census urban areas, that's gotta be it. Okay, so I'm gonna add that to the map, and I think I made a bookmark up here for the city, Fenway Park actually. Okay, so I'm gonna need to zoom out here, and anytime you get a layer from the Living Atlas that has this icon on it, it's called a feature layer. All right, these are the good ones. All right, these are great to work with because what you can do, wow, somebody's got some issues in the jurisdiction department. I didn't realize Boston was kind of a, some of these cities are just, it's a little weird, kind of like the Vatican. Okay, moving forward, let's go to select. Okay, and you can only do this with these feature layers. All right, so we're gonna select that, and I'm gonna just double check because this is kind of a Swiss cheese city, and sure enough, it is Boston, Mass. Okay, now the cool thing that you can do with the city selected is right click, okay, on your layer and then come down to data and you can export the feature. Okay, so put your little I-beam right in front there. Just make sure it's in front of that slash, and we're just gonna call this Boston. And you can't have any spaces in here, they don't like that. So Boston bounds, and it's just gonna go to your geo database automatically. Okay, so we're just going to do that. It adds it to the map automatically. Okay, and so I can clear that selection, and now I can get rid of this entire urban areas. So I will just simply right click on that and choose remove. And so now we can use this one for masking, and you know, the first thing I'd like to do is just outline the city limits. So I'm going to click on that symbol, and I'm just going to use a black line for now because we may want to bring that into Photoshop. Okay, now in the previous video I had talked about getting your historical maps on this really great website. Okay, and here it is. Okay, and again, I go into more detail about this in the previous video, but it's really pretty simple. You just navigate to your site, okay? And remember, this is only US based, unfortunately. This is by the USGS, okay? And so here we've got a beautiful map of the city. I mean, I just love these old school maps, you know, the way they did all this by hand. Okay, but I definitely want this side as well, and hopefully I can get one that matches this exact style. Okay, so the way you do that, again, is you need to pin this one down, okay, and then drop your crosshairs over here, and then let's see if we can find a match. Okay, that guy's a little off. I think we struck gold. That looks nice. Okay, so I'm gonna pin that one as well. Okay, and there's really a lot of cool stuff you can do here. You can pin maps throughout all the years, and then there's actually a way when you go here to play an animation, and you can see how your site has changed over 100 years, which is pretty amazing. I mean, think about that, guys. When you're landscape architects, I hope you're going to be able to bring a lot to the field, to the game when you're doing a site analysis over a large area. I think you guys are doing a project in Colorado, or somebody, and they went up here at one point for a project. So it's just really great to be able to bring the history of a place into the site analysis. Okay, so let's download these guys, and they are geotiffed, so we should just be able to drag and drop them over. And what's nice is they're relatively small files. We don't need some of these massive files. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my downloads folder. All right, I'm gonna grab these two guys, do a Control X, open up the project, and then I think it's gonna be a really good idea if, let me sort these by name. So why don't I like to hold down Shift and Control, tap N for a new folder, and I'm just gonna call this 12 historical maps. You see, these projects can get a little, there's a lot in there. Okay, so now we can head back to Pro. All right, and I've got to do that this way with the recorder. Okay, and then we are going to go over to the catalog, and we're going to go to our project, and now we need to go and find that folder we just made. Okay, so JD, we got issues here. I don't know what is going on. Okay, so let me refresh this. Remember, if you don't see your folder, right-click and choose refresh, and then there we go. Okay, that was just a hiccup with all those doubles. So here's our historical maps, and then you should be able to just drag and drop them over, or right-click and add to current map, and boom, they are right on the money. Now we do have this little bit of banding, okay? That's not the best, but let's see how we can do that, how we can fix that. Okay, give me one sec. Okay, so what I did here was I zoomed into Fenway Park, where the Red Sox have been playing baseball for so long, and then I just zoomed out to a nice extent where none of this important text was clipped off. And for this project, that's going to be fine. Okay, we're coming down to the wire, so let's just work with what we have now. This looks like it's going to work best on a square layout. So remember, for renderings, there's 3 sizes. There's 18 by 24, and you can do that in landscape or portrait. And then the third size is 24 by 24. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and now I'm going to add that map frame, AOI City of Boston. Okay, and snap that guy into place. And it didn't keep the zoom, but it said it was at 78,000. So what I'm gonna do is come here to my map frame, and I'm gonna right click and go to activate. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to bookmarks, Fenway Park. Okay, now remember, once you activate your map frame, it's like you're in model space. Okay, and then I'm just gonna zoom out and get a nice, because I'm gonna want to highlight that Fenway Park on the rendering, so I'm gonna keep zooming out. and but I do want to get enough of Boston without chopping stuff off. And in fact, you know what? This whole sheet would be really neat. What if I turn off that guy, right click on this fella, and zoom to layer, okay? All right, so I like this marginalia here, and so what we're gonna do is, let's just get rid of him, okay? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go back to the layout, okay? And we're gonna double click on our map frame, okay? And I always like to start over here, make sure all of my numbers are right, and then I always take off this pesky stroke. And now here is where we can zoom in, and I'm gonna choose 50,000. In fact, what am I thinking, Lionel? This map should, well, it's not gonna have a ratio scale, so that's 5 miles, but, okay, let me try 50,000. I'm sure if I was smarter, I'd be able to figure that out, but there is no way to scale a map like this the way you can scale raster images in CAD, and I'm not sure why, because that would really make a lot of sense. All right, so let's go back to activate, and we're gonna move this guy over just like this. Okay. So now that looks pretty good. I'm gonna just go back to the layout, and now I just want to catch that little bit on the bottom, and so I think what I'll have to do is back to activate and just pull that up a bit. Okay, nice. I got it on the money. Okay, now you may be wondering, why didn't we just use the map as it came, you know, as when it downloaded? That's because we want to get the topography or the terrain data matched up perfectly with this layer. Okay, and you're gonna see what I mean in a second. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we are going to export this map. Okay, I'm gonna do a Control S to save, and now I'm gonna go to Share, Export Layout. Okay, and I've got, let's see, I've got a rendering folder. Okay, and I'm gonna do this one as, I'm gonna make a new folder. It's going to be important to stay organized in this project. One of the worst things is wasting a ton of time just looking for files. And I'm simply going to call this one historical. Okay. And open this up, and then I am going to just call this the base map. Okay, and then I will export that. Okay, so that didn't take very long at all. Now I'm going to come back to the catalog, and I am going to go to the portal, Living Atlas, and I'm just going to type in terrain. Okay, and we simply need this guy, the raw terrain. So we're going to add this to the current map, and this takes a little bit of time. It's a lot of data that streams in. And also remember, when you're exporting maps from this program, you do need a really good internet speed, okay? Because it's all based, these layers, the way we're doing this now, it's a lot of this data is streaming in, okay? We're using this because the DEMs you downloaded are specific for your, they're specific for your contours. Now, if your DEMs fill up this whole area, that's great. You know, use those, but I don't believe the one that JD and I got will do that. So remember now, first things first, you want to get rid of these layer credits because they'll really mess up your rendering down the road. So you come up to insert here at the top, you go over to this dynamic text, scroll down, and you will see service layer credits. Then you get this little crosshairs, just draw a box out here, block her up and shut her down. Okay, now of course we all know why this is perfectly black. It's because we are stretched out from the top of Mount Everest, which is getting the pure white, down to, I think, I don't know where that is, but it's probably not a pleasant place. It's pure black. Okay, so we need to condense that onto here, and we just do that by selecting the layer, and then these tabs appear, okay, and then you hit this dynamic range. And again, this takes a little bit of time. Okay, so this looks just kind of grayed out. There should be some pitch blacks in there, and so what I'm actually going to do is type in topography, and this works anywhere in the world, even if you're in the middle of the Midwest and there's no ocean. Okay, and what we want here is simply okay, I put it in our, yeah, oh my gosh, it's right here, add to current map. So we're gonna add this guy, do the same thing with the dynamic range, and then we're gonna give him a screen blend mode, and that's just gonna add some more pop to it. Because as I said, these should really be dark blacks, and I'm not quite sure why that is the case, but you know, when you're working on projects and you have deadlines, you just gotta figure it out. Okay, so now I come up here, okay, I hit the dynamic range, I'm still on this image service layer, come over to layer blend, and multiply is gonna do too much, but this overlay I think is the one that I wanted. And that, remember when this wheel is turning, it's doing its thing, and there we go, that looks good. And I'll have to use the healing tool in Photoshop to get that out. I'm not really sure what that is. This looks really interesting actually. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is once again share, okay, and remember I should have mentioned how important the settings are here. It's the same settings we used before. We have to export, we're going to export the file as a TIFF file, okay? And that's what this is doing here, but they like it to be in a PDF envelope, okay? So make this a PDF and then just follow these settings that you see, okay, here, okay? And that is the quickest way to get this out of the gate. So we're gonna call this height, and I'm just gonna leave that alone. All right, and I'm gonna export, and I'll be with you in a sec. Okay, that took long enough. So now, the last thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn these guys off, and I am gonna go again to the Living Atlas. It's just awesome how you can get all this data at your fingertips. And I am gonna search for the NHD, National Hydrography Data Set. Okay, there's the high resolution. I would go with just this plus version, okay? And add this when you're in your layout space, okay? Otherwise you're gonna be adding data to most of the country, and that's just not necessary. So we'll add this guy. Okay, great. So that came in, nice and quick. And the reason why I want to add this is I have to bring these layers into Photoshop. One, to transform them into PNGs, and two, I also want to see if I overlay this water with maybe a multiplied blend mode on top of the historical map, if that's going to look good. And this doesn't take long to export at all. So I'm going to do this. Just change this to hydro. Hit enter, and let's export this one. Okay, great. So that's exported. Now I'm gonna save my project. I don't like having too many big programs open at the same time. Just helps me stay organized. Okay, so I have there. I just I had to do something. All right, so what I did was I created a 24 by 24 inch canvas in Photoshop, and then I brought in my PDFs, okay, and I duplicated. Let me show you what I did here. Okay, so what I did to spruce this layer up, I just hold down Alt and left mouse, duplicate that, and then I gave that girl a soft light, hit escape, okay. Now what's important here is we don't want any terrain showing on our border, okay. So what we are gonna need to do is activate our marquee tool with an M, okay, and just make a careful selection box here. All right, just get your, and then Shift Control I inverts that. Now let's make a new layer and make sure your black is in the back, okay? And if you have different colors here, just hit D for default, and then X sends black to the back, and then Control Backspace will fill that. Let me turn that off. We'll fill that with a good black, okay? So that won't appear, you know, all bumpy and everything. And in fact, let me zoom in here, and I'm actually gonna grab this black, okay, and I'm gonna X send that to the back, Control click that layer to select it, and then do Control Backspace again, and that way that border won't be sunk down. Okay, now the last thing I need to do, and I should have done this before I made that copy, I've got to heal these out. So I'm going to come up here to my little band-aid and use the right bracket keys to get my brush a little bigger, and then boom. And that pimple is history. Okay, and I'm gonna left bracket this one, and that's good. Okay, Control 0. Now I'm gonna duplicate this again, holding down Alt. Gonna do the old soft light. That looks really nice. Okay, now escape out of that soft light, and with these three guys turned on, okay, we are going to come up here and we are going to do a export, quick export as PNG, okay, and I am going to go to my historical rendering map, and I'm just going to save that. And it's not a very quick export. Okay, now let's turn these off. Turn that fella on, and this is just the same deal. We just need to turn this into a PNG. Okay, so this one we're just gonna call base material. And I guess she's done. Okay, and I'm not even gonna save this. So I did try, oh, it's not done yet. I did try the water overlay on this, it was shocking to see how much of this harbor was, it was just plain gone. It was all developed. I mean, I guess they've just sunk piers in here and just built out, but like all of this was no longer water and everything. But if you're really good at Photoshop and you want to paint in around here, that could look really nice. I'm going to leave this alone, and I will meet you in Stager. Now, to get that launched, okay, remember, we do have on Blackboard, you have your final project templates, okay? So for this poster, for this graphic, I just grabbed the 24 map rendering and the material build. Oh, well, I made just a fresh Photoshop file. But grab this, because this has the model in it, okay? And it's got the camera set up and everything like that. Then come here, okay, and just double, well, I already named it historical, so I'm just gonna double click on that and get the software fired up. And remember, this has got to be the simplest rendering process that I have ever experienced. 3D software used to be just very, very difficult to use, and a lot of it still is, but this is a sweet little program. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our model, okay, and let me go to the viewport camera and zoom out, and I'm holding down Alt and the left mouse button. So this is your model. I mean, it doesn't look like much of a model, but again, it's the base that you need for all of this to work. Okay, so now we're gonna get on this and we're gonna go to the material, and we are going to, for base color, add our base image, okay? And let's see where we're at here. Let me go to rendering, historical, and so there's that base, okay, and I'm just gonna open that. Okay, so far so good. And then here is where the actual 3D elevation takes place, okay? Remember, you go into height, okay, and all these settings are pretty good for now. Just click on that, and again, we need to select that file. And it always does this. It kind of drives me nuts. I've never been able to figure out how to make either one of those files, so you have to come down there and then grab your height. Okay, now you'll notice nothing happened, so what you need to do is come over to your object, all right, and turn on this displacement. Now this is a heavy duty operation, okay? It requires a lot of horsepower, so make sure that you're not on your, like a little laptop or something. Okay, you do need some firepower there. Okay, so we got this girl up in the air, and that is looking pretty cool. All right, so I'm gonna go back to, well, you know what we can do for just a little bit? This looks great, but this is the true magic of 3D. It's called ray tracing. I won't get into it because I don't even really understand it, but it's like they actually generate true light effects within the computer by just simulating trillions of photons hitting the object, and obviously, yeah, it's out of my league. So this looks pretty cool. Let's go to the camera view. I know this video is getting long, okay? And the last thing we're gonna do is come over here and grab a sun, and we will pick, I've always liked this guy, Terrace near the granaries, okay? Oh my gosh, that looks beautiful. Okay, that really looks amazing. There's Boston Harbor, but you see, this is the problem. We're using historical imagery on top of modern, and this is not going to be the case for most of you. Okay, there's not too many places that students that you guys have chosen where this much development has occurred. But you can see this is no longer water. Okay, this is a built. It almost looks like an airport or something. So this is interesting. I'm a little, disappointed that we didn't get more of like a national park where the topography hasn't changed. But you see how the process is done, okay? And I like to turn up the intensity just a bit, and the global rotation to 145 makes the shadows nice, okay? But this really tells the tale of just how much this has changed, okay? And again, it's nice because we have this beautiful marginalia. I really think that this is going to be a fantastic graphic for you guys. I would stick to just one USGS map with the border, okay? And some of them cover a great deal more land than the others, so just get on that website and find the map that's right for you and go through this process. And then at the end, you're going to render, okay? Make sure you're on high, and it's going to put the file right into the folder where this stager file is. So it's all good to go. So I'm going to render this, show you what it looks like when it's finished, but this usually takes about 15 minutes or so. So obviously I'm going to pause it. Okay, so this is about halfway through the rendering process, and you can see like how the topography underneath, or the terrain underneath, really matches the topo lines that they drew. This map is this is from 1885. I mean, that is awesome. So you can also go to fit to screen. Okay, there's one thing, I want to do this one over because I think one of the reasons that it's a bit messy was I started with an unprojected map, and that is not a good idea, okay? Yours are going to look better, but you can see that there's some pretty phenomenal results that are going to come down the stretch when we get this done. So, looking forward to tomorrow and knocking these out.